Welcome back, pop fanatics. Let's be brutally honest. In a ruthless industry churning out new idols daily, how does one septet refuse to budge from the absolute peak? Are they just lucky, or is there a terrifying foundation rookies simply can't replicate? Today, we are diving deep into Refusing to Step Aside, 7 Harsh Realities Why BTS Still Stands Far Above Other K-pop Groups. What truly happens behind their glittering stages? Can anyone dethrone them, or is the gap impossibly massive? Number 7. RM. The Architect's Blueprint, Unmatched Brainpower. Let's talk about the harsh, unforgiving reality of the K-pop machine, folks. A reality where idols are so often treated as highly polished, easily replaceable chess pieces moved by invisible corporate hands. But right at the bottom of BTS's impenetrable fortress lies the very reason they cannot be touched. And his name is Kim Namjoon, better known to the world as RM. Imagine, if you will, being a teenager in the gritty, fiercely competitive underground hip-hop scene of Ilsan, spitting raw bars under the moniker Runch Randa, dealing with the heavy, suffocating stigma from hip-hop purists that idol rappers are nothing but manufactured fakes wearing makeup. Now imagine taking all that street-level credibility and gambling it on a tiny, nearly bankrupt agency called Big Hit Entertainment, a company so broke they couldn't even afford proper backup dancers, decent recording equipment, or high-budget music videos. The stark, undeniable difference between BTS and the endless sea of shiny, factory-perfect rookies debuting every single month is the foundational DNA, because BTS wasn't built on a boardroom spreadsheet or a focus group's algorithmic data. They were built organically around RM's brain. In an industry where concepts are routinely bought from Western producers and lyrics are patched together by a massive team of 20 ghostwriters who don't even speak Korean or understand the group's personal struggles, RM is the lyrical architect who poured his literal blood, sweat, and tears into the group's monumental discography, holding well over 200 writing and producing credits with the Korea Music Copyright Association. But it is not merely about writing catchy songs to top the Billboard charts. It is about carrying the agonizing, crushing psychological weight of a global phenomenon on your shoulders without breaking in front of the cameras. When you look at other K-pop groups, you often see designated leaders who act as polite corporate spokespersons, trained to give safe, PR-approved answers. But when you look at RM, you see a philosopher, a cultural diplomat, a fierce protector, and a literal human shield for his members. Let's rewind the tapes to a hidden camera prank during their brutal, uncertain early days. Bang Shi-hyuk, the founder, harshly cornered a young RM in a cramped office and aggressively asked him if he wanted to go solo and leave the struggling group behind or stay with BTS. Without missing a single microscopic beat, without a second of hesitation or selfish calculation, RM firmly declared BTS. That right there, ladies and gentlemen, is the harsh reality that multi-million-dollar entertainment companies cannot artificially replicate in their sterile training camps. You cannot train profound, soul-deep loyalty. You cannot teach a 20-something-year-old artist from South Korea to stand confidently at the prestigious podium of the United Nations, speaking entirely in a second language, delivering the iconic "Speak Yourself" speech with such profound, trembling sincerity that it echoed across global news networks and inspired millions of marginalized youths to finally find their own voices. While other groups are busy figuring out how to memorize their scripted greetings, agonizing over their airport fashion, and learning how to wink perfectly at the camera, RM was busy visiting obscure art museums, studying the quiet beauty of nature in a process fans affectionately call Namjooning, reading complex literature by Haruki Murakami, Hermann Hesse, and Carl Jung, and weaving deep psychological theories into the phenomenal Map of the Soul era. He single-handedly elevated K-pop from a genre known mostly for synchronized dancing and catchy bubblegum hooks to a globally respected, intellectually stimulating art form that dissects the darkest corners of the human psyche. The gap between them and the rest of the industry is absolutely horrifying when you realize that most companies desperately try to build the next BTS by simply copying their old street-style outfits, replicating their past hair colors, or aggressively mimicking their social media engagement strategies, completely missing the crucial fact that the absolute blueprint of their success is RM's terrifying intellect and his unyielding willingness to display raw vulnerability to the masses. He taught millions of people how to embrace their shadows, speaking openly and poetically in his solo masterpieces like Mono, Indigo, and Right Place, Wrong Person about his own exhausting struggles with depression, the painful loss of identity, and the suffocating pressure of astronomical fame, creating a parasocial bond that is rooted in genuine human survival rather than just superficial visual perfection. Do you honestly think a group hastily formed on a cutthroat reality television survival show in 3 months can compete with a leader who has spent over a decade meticulously dissecting his own soul and offering the pieces to his fans? It is practically impossible and borderline laughable to even compare the two. Furthermore, RM acts as the essential translator, not just of the English language, but of complex emotions and cultural nuances between the East and the West, between reckless youth and responsible adulthood, bearing the agonizing brunt of xenophobia, racism, and intense skeptical scrutiny when they first violently broke into the impenetrable Western market. He stood unflinchingly at the forefront, shielding the younger members from predatory, condescending interviewers, answering incredibly ignorant questions with a lethal mix of majestic grace and razor-sharp wit, all while making absolutely sure the core identity of 7 Korean boys who simply love music was never compromised for a cheap moment of Western validation. This intellectual and emotional bedrock means that while other popular groups inevitably crumble under the overwhelming pressure of sudden fame, internal ego clashes, contract disputes, or massive media scandals, BTS is firmly held together by a leader who views the group not as a temporary profit-driven business venture, but as a sacred, lifelong brotherhood bound by music and shared trauma. It's a bitter, jagged pill for the rest of the entertainment industry to swallow. You can have all the millions of dollars in investment capital, the absolute best choreographers flown in from Los Angeles, the most expensive CGI-heavy music videos in the entire world, and the most visually stunning members curated by plastic surgeons and stylists. But if your foundation isn't built on a mastermind who bleeds his authentic truth into every single lyric and protects his team with the unyielding ferocity of a cornered lion, you will never, ever reach the dizzying, lonely summit of Mount Olympus, where BTS currently resides as undisputed kings. So the next time you see a heavily promoted rookie group being aggressively hailed by the mainstream media as the next BTS, just pause and ask yourself a simple reality-checking question. Do they have an architect like Kim Namjoon, who possesses the intellect, the empathy, and the sheer willpower to build an entire universe from scratch? Or are they just comfortably renting a shiny house that someone else built? This is exactly why they emphatically refused to step aside. They built the damn stage themselves, plank by grueling plank, and the first unbreakable pillar of that stage is a leader whose mind is a weapon of mass inspiration that the K-pop industry is still desperately yet entirely fruitlessly trying to clone. Number 6. Jin, the silver voice that shattered the glass ceiling, defying the visual stereotype. Let's face another brutal, uncomfortable truth about the glamorous, ultra-manufactured K-pop industry, a reality that most agencies desperately try to hide behind smoke machines and dazzling laser lights. The visual position is almost always a cursed trap, a pretty, gilded cage where exceptionally good-looking members are recruited off the street solely to attract screaming fans, given one or two highly auto-tuned lines and expected to just stand in the center looking breathtakingly flawless while the actual vocalists do all the heavy lifting. But this is exactly where the monumental, untouchable legacy of Kim Seok-jin absolutely obliterates the conventional rulebook and proves why no other group can even dare to breathe the same air as BTS. Imagine the immense, suffocating pressure of being an ordinary university acting student, a young man who had absolutely zero background in singing, no foundational rhythm in dancing, who was quite literally chased down on the street by a big-hit casting director just because he looked like he walked straight out of a romance manhwa. For most idols in that exact situation, the story ends right there. They accept their predetermined role as the designated eye candy, smile perfectly for the relentless cameras, and collect their paychecks, without ever pushing their own boundaries. But Jin fiercely rejected that humiliating narrative with a level of relentless, bone-crushing hard work that is genuinely terrifying to comprehend. The sheer, unadulterated reality is that Jin was not born a natural musical prodigy like Jungkook or Jimin. He had to brutally carve his vocals out of solid rock, spending countless agonizing nights alone in the cramped, sweaty, poorly ventilated basement practice rooms of their early days, singing until his throat felt like it was bleeding, and practicing the exact same punishing dance routines for hours on end after everyone else had finally gone to sleep, desperately trying to convince his stiff, uncoordinated body to match the dizzying, breakneck speed of J-Hope's intricate choreography. Do you know how incredibly crushing it is to debut in a hip-hop heavy group, reading vicious online comments from anti-fans mercilessly mocking your dancing and calling you a useless filler member who only serves as a pretty face? Any normal, rational person would have shattered into a million pieces, quit the industry entirely, or simply settled into mediocrity. But Seok-jin took all that venom, all that crushing doubt, and used it as lethal high-octane fuel to meticulously build himself into one of the most stable, emotionally resonant powerhouse vocalists in the entire Korean music industry. You absolutely cannot simply manufacture the soul-stirring, goosebump-inducing high notes of his legendary solo track, Awake, the heartbreakingly beautiful stadium-silencing vulnerability of Epiphany, where he stood alone in the pouring artificial rain commanding thousands of weeping fans, or the soaring, cosmic perfection of Moon and the Astronaut, a song gifted to him by Coldplay's Chris Martin, who recognized Jin's profound artistry. His jaw-dropping vocal evolution over the past decade is not just a typical K-pop story of gradual improvement. It is a brutal, awe-inspiring testament to human willpower, a masterclass in defying limitations that entirely separates BTS from temporary factory-made trend chasers who rely heavily on lip-syncing and loud backing tracks to barely survive their grueling world tours. And yet the harsh realities do not stop at his awe-inspiring work ethic, because Jin's absolute greatest weapon, the invisible, unbreakable glue that fundamentally kept BTS from imploding under the horrific, crushing weight of global superstardom, is his astonishing emotional intelligence and his radical, rebellious rejection of traditional Korean age hierarchy. In a conservative culture heavily dictated by strict Confucian values, where the oldest member wields absolute, unquestionable authority and demands strict obedience from juniors, Jin, as the eldest Mathyang, actively chose to dismantle his own ego, constantly acting goofy, cracking terrible dad jokes, and deliberately making himself the target of playful teasing just so the younger members could feel incredibly safe, relaxed, and equal in his overwhelming presence. He essentially threw away the heavy, glittering crown of age-based power to build a democratic, trauma-bonded brotherhood, ensuring that RM, despite being much younger, could lead the group flawlessly without constantly worrying about stepping on his older brother's toes or offending his pride. That kind of selfless, egoless sacrifice is completely unheard of in the cutthroat, fiercely competitive environment of K-pop, where internal jealousy, screen time greed, and bitter power struggles have notoriously destroyed countless legendary groups from the inside out, turning former bandmates into bitter strangers. While other agencies desperately try to force artificial chemistry by making their rookie groups play scripted games on variety shows and strictly monitor their interactions, you cannot fake the profound, almost maternal love Jin has for his members, waking up at dawn to drive a sleepy teenage Jungkook to his high school classes, using his own small allowance to cook massive, comforting meals for the broke, starving trainees in their cramped dorms, and constantly lightening the suffocating, anxiety-inducing mood of backstage panic with his booming, infectious windshield wiper laugh that immediately disarms any rising tension. Furthermore, his unyielding mental fortitude was put to the ultimate terrifying test when he proudly became the very first BTS member to enlist in the notoriously grueling South Korean military, bravely marching into the freezing winter boot camps near the heavily fortified border and rapidly rising to the prestigious, demanding rank of sergeant and elite drill instructor, absolutely destroying the malicious years-long political witch hunts from cynical critics who falsely accused BTS of trying to use their massive fame to dodge their national duty. When he finally returned as a civilian in June 2024, did he demand a long, luxurious vacation on a private island like any other overworked celebrity? Absolutely not. Within a mere 24 hours of taking off his military uniform, he was back in the trenches, hugging 1,000 sobbing fans at a massive, emotionally charged arena event, proving once again that his devotion to Army and his absolute refusal to let the BTS legacy cool down is a blazing inferno that no other idol can ever hope to match. This is the brutal, undeniable truth that other K-pop companies weep over in their sterile boardrooms. You can scout 1,000,000 ridiculously handsome faces, you can put them in the most expensive designer brands, and you can teach them to wink perfectly at the camera, but you cannot train a man to possess the sheer, unbreakable psychological grit to transform himself from a clueless, tone-deaf acting student into a stadium-shaking silver vocalist. Nor can you force an eldest brother to willingly sacrifice his own pride to relentlessly nurture the fragile mental health of his entire team. Jin is not just worldwide handsome, he is the immovable, steel-enforced pillar of BTS's emotional stability, the silver-voiced warrior that shattered the glass ceiling of visual stereotypes, and the very reason why all those heavily manufactured rookie groups staring up at the throne will never ever be able to comprehend the agonizing, beautiful, and fiercely loyal price of staying at the absolute top of the world.
Number 5. Suga, the unrelenting underground hustler, trading pain for power, defying the industry standard. Let's peel back another heavily glamorous layer of this billion-dollar industry and boldly confront a painfully harsh reality that most K-pop executives are absolutely terrified to acknowledge. You can easily manufacture a catchy chorus, you can buy a $1,000,000 beat from a famous Swedish pop producer, and you can train an attractive teenager to rap precisely on beat, but you can never, ever manufacture the raw, bleeding desperation of a starving artist who literally had to choose between paying for a bus ride home or eating a cheap bowl of jjajangmyeon. And this brings us to the immovable, terrifyingly genius backbone of BTS's musical integrity, Min Yoongi, globally feared and revered as Suga, and his fierce alter ego, August D. What truly happens when you take a fiercely independent underground hip-hop producer from the gritty streets of Daegu, a kid who was constantly scammed out of his hard-earned money for his beats, and throw him into the brutally restrictive, hyper-controlled environment of an idol training camp? For most ordinary people, it would mean immediate, messy rebellion or total, soul-crushing submission. But for Yoongi, it meant quietly infiltrating the system to absolutely conquer it from the inside out. Let's talk about the dark, hidden secrets that rookie groups today will never have to face, safely coddled in their luxurious, company-funded dorms with corporate credit cards. Do you know the sheer, paralyzing terror of working a dangerous, illegal part-time job delivering food on a beat-up motorcycle just to pay for your trainee tuition, getting violently slammed by a car at an intersection, and completely shattering your shoulder? Now imagine the absolute, suffocating horror of dragging your broken body back to the dorm and deliberately hiding that agonizing injury from your agency, popping cheap painkillers and violently dancing through blinding agony because you are so utterly terrified they will deem you defective and immediately kick you out of the debut lineup. That is exactly what Yoongi did, carrying a severely dislocated, agonizingly painful shoulder for nearly a decade, performing high-intensity choreography on global stadium stages while his body was quite literally falling apart, all until he finally underwent complex, career-threatening surgery in 2020. How can a freshly debuted, heavily pampered idol who complains about a slightly exhausting television schedule even dare to compare themselves to a man who literally shattered his bones and swallowed his own screams just to keep his team's impossible dream alive? The gap is not just massive, it is fundamentally incomprehensible. But the harsh reality of Min Yoongi's supremacy extends far beyond his unimaginable physical endurance. It lies deep within his razor-sharp, unapologetically brutal lyricism that single-handedly shattered the pristine, heavily censored illusion of the traditional K-pop idol. In an industry strictly governed by squeaky-clean PR images, where idols are severely reprimanded for even looking tired on camera, Suga violently kicked down the iron doors with his legendary August D mixtapes, spitting visceral, venomous bars about his severe battles with crippling depression, obsessive-compulsive disorder, and terrifying social phobia. He boldly dragged the darkest, ugliest demons of his own psyche out into the blinding global spotlight, rapping about the horrifying nights he spent hiding in a bathroom stall, absolutely terrified of people, and the suffocating, terrifying emptiness that comes with massive, unfathomable success. Do you honestly think a factory-made idol group reading sterile lyrics written by a middle-aged ghostwriter can ever replicate the profound, bone-chilling impact of a masterpiece like The Last, Snooze, or Amygdala, where Yoongi openly dissects the trauma of his mother's heart surgery, his traumatic delivery accident, and his burning, desperate desire to succeed just to prove his malicious doubters wrong? It is a level of terrifying, raw vulnerability that commands immediate, unwavering respect, not just from die-hard fans, but from the most elite, critically acclaimed musicians around the globe. This is exactly why legendary, untouchable artists like Psy, IU, Halsey, and the late great Ryuichi Sakamoto didn't just casually collaborate with him for clout, they sought him out specifically for his unparalleled genius, solidifying his undisputed status as a full elite member of the Korea Music Copyright Association. With a jaw-dropping catalog of chart-topping hits that he produced entirely from scratch in his humble studio, Genius Lab. While other major agencies are desperately flying their artists to Los Angeles song camps to blindly purchase the next viral TikTok trend, Yoongi is wide awake at 4 a.m., intensely glaring at computer monitors, meticulously producing, writing, and arranging complex tracks that perfectly capture the exact emotional zeitgeist of an entire struggling generation. He is the lethal silent assassin of BTS, a man who rarely speaks unless it is absolutely necessary, but when he does, he drops profound, prophetic truths that reshape the entire trajectory of the group, famously manifesting their Billboard #1, their historic Grammy nominations, and their massive stadium tours with such chilling accuracy that fans legitimately call him a psychic. You simply cannot train that kind of quiet, terrifying confidence. You cannot teach a rookie idol to look directly into the camera during a live broadcast and casually state that they don't care about the haters anymore because they are too busy looking at their astronomical stadium revenue. The brutal reality that keeps BTS infinitely elevated above the rest is that their music is not a heavily curated product designed in a sterile corporate lab to maximize streaming algorithms. It is the literal, bleeding diary of Min Yoongi and his brothers. When you have a producer-rapper who has stared directly into the terrifying abyss of poverty, physical agony, and severe mental illness, and not only survived but forged those horrific traumas into globally dominating, platinum-selling anthems, you create an unbreakable, diamond-hard shield of authenticity that no amount of fake, manufactured swag can ever penetrate. So when new, shiny hip-hop groups debut with expensive fake tattoos and heavily stylized outfits, trying desperately to act tough and rebellious on stage to impress the masses, we must ask the brutal, undeniable question: have they actually bled for their art, or are they just safely playing dress-up in a monumental house that Yoongi built? This is the indisputable, harsh reality. Suga refuses to step aside because he paid for that glorious throne with his own blood, sweat, and shattered bones. And until another artist is willing to pay that exact same agonizing price, BTS will remain the absolute untouchable monarchs of the music industry.
Number 4. J-Hope, the terrifying dance commander. A masterpiece forged in blood and rhythm, setting the impossible standard. Let us peel back the glittering, heavily manufactured curtain on yet another terrifying reality of the cutthroat K-pop industry, folks. A reality where perfect synchronization and razor-sharp choreography are absolutely bare minimum requirements just to step foot on a broadcast stage, leading endless companies to treat their idols like identical robotic wind-up toys aggressively drilled by expensive choreographers until they completely lose their individual souls. But how does BTS consistently, year after year, deliver stadium-shattering, jaw-dropping performances that leave seasoned music critics completely speechless and rookie groups trembling in absolute awe? The secret weapon, the undisputed, terrifyingly precise engine of their live performance dominance, is a man who hides a merciless, iron-fisted leadership style behind the brightest, most blindingly joyful smile on planet Earth. Jungkook, universally adored and feared as J-Hope. To truly understand the insurmountable, gargantuan gap between BTS and every other group desperately clawing for the crown, you have to travel back to the gritty, highly competitive underground street dance battles of Gwangju, where a young prodigy known as Smile Hoya was already completely dominating the scene, winning prestigious national competitions while most current idols were still playing in elementary school. He did not learn how to dance in a sterile, perfectly mirrored corporate studio funded by millions of dollars. He learned it on the unforgiving streets, absorbing the raw, pulsating essence of hip-hop directly into his bloodstream. Now imagine taking that unparalleled prodigy-level street credibility and placing it into the fragile, fiercely uncertain environment of pre-debut BTS, a group heavily leaning into a hardcore hip-hop image but struggling to survive in a tiny, cramped dorm. The brutal, heartbreaking reality that almost completely destroyed the group before they even started was when Big Hit Entertainment abruptly decided to cut J-Hope from the final debut lineup. Can you imagine the sheer, suffocating devastation of having your life's dream violently ripped away?
But this is exactly where the unbreakable, trauma-bonded brotherhood of BTS violently separates them from manufactured corporate bands. RM, risking his own precarious future with the company, marched straight to the strict management and fiercely fought for Hoseok, bluntly stating that they absolutely could not survive without him, while a very young Jungkook literally cried oceans of tears, begging his beloved older brother to stay. Hoseok turned down lucrative offers from other agencies and chose to return, gambling his entire life on his profound, unshakable trust in RM and the members. That soul-deep, life-or-death loyalty simply cannot be artificially replicated by groups thrown together by a reality television voting algorithm. Once he returned, J-Hope immediately ascended to his rightful throne as the group's unofficial dance leader, and let me tell you, the backstage reality of his leadership is absolutely terrifying. While rookie groups heavily rely on their company's performance directors to constantly coddle them and fix their mistakes, BTS is ruthlessly driven by J-Hope's eagle-eyed, bone-chilling perfectionism. There is a legendary, widely known fear among the BTS members regarding the silent, intensely intimidating glare J-Hope gets when he is monitoring their dance practices. A single misplaced pinky finger or a breath taken a fraction of a second too late is immediately spotted, isolated, and drilled endlessly until their muscles burn with lactic acid and their lungs scream for mercy. He doesn't just memorize choreography, he completely dissects it, manipulating the exact angles, the microscopic energy shifts, and the collective breathing of 7 distinct individuals to create a living, breathing, monstrously powerful organism on stage. You can literally see this staggering difference in absolute masterpieces like the blindingly intense On Kinetic Manifesto film or the iconic jaw-dropping dance break of Mic Drop. But the absolute undeniable proof of his terrifying supremacy, the moment that violently shut down any lingering doubts about his solo capabilities, was his historic, unprecedented headlining performance at Lollapalooza in Chicago, affectionately dubbed Hobie-Palooza by the massive roaring crowd. Do you know how incredibly rare and utterly exhausting it is for a K-pop idol to stand alone on a massive Western festival stage, completely stripped of backing tracks, elaborate props, and the safety net of their fellow members, and completely command a roaring ocean of over 100,000 hardcore rock and hip-hop fans for 70 agonizingly intense minutes? He didn't just survive the pressure, he absolutely devoured the stage, spewing fire with his hardcore, gritty solo album Jack in the Box, a dark, grunge-heavy psychological exploration that completely shattered his bright sunshine persona and proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that he is a ferocious, unparalleled rock star, capable of manipulating the energy of a massive crowd with a single flick of his wrist. How can a freshly debuted, heavily auto-tuned idol who desperately needs 20 camera cuts just to look decent in a 3-minute music video ever hope to compete with a man who can single-handedly swallow a historic American music festival whole? Furthermore, J-Hope's terrifying genius extends well beyond his physical body. Remember, he was originally scouted strictly as a dancer and vocalist, but completely rebuilt himself from absolute zero into a top-tier rapper just to perfectly balance the rap line with RM and Suga, spending countless agonizing nights learning the incredibly complex intricacies of flow, rhythm, and lyricism, until he became a deeply respected, heavily credited Korea Music Copyright Association powerhouse in his own right. His unique, incredibly dynamic flow, characterized by rhythmic bouncing and insanely creative ad-libs, provides the essential electrifying heartbeat of BTS's entire massive discography. And let's not forget his absolute dedication to his roots. even just before enlisting in the notoriously brutal South Korean military, where he, following Jin's incredible footsteps, served as an elite, highly respected drill instructor. He released the stunning documentary series Hope on the Street, returning to the very underground alleys where his journey began, proving that astronomical wealth and unimaginable fame have never detached him from his pure, unadulterated love for street dance. He is the ultimate irreplaceable glue of BTS, the strict enforcer who meticulously ensures their live performances remain untouchable, the warm sunshine who constantly manages the members' emotional exhaustion behind the scenes, and the brilliant artistic bridge seamlessly connecting the hardcore rap line and the melodic vocal line. So when these shiny new billion-dollar agencies desperately pump millions of won into buying the most complex choreography in the world, trying to artificially create a dance-focused group that can supposedly rival the Kings, we must pose this deeply unsettling, undeniable question to the industry. Do they have a commanding general who actually bleeds the music, who can spot a microsecond error without breaking a sweat, and who is willing to push his own brothers to the absolute brink of physical collapse out of pure, uncompromising love of the stage? Or are they just blindly executing robotic movements for a paycheck? J-Hop utterly refuses to step aside because he fundamentally is the standard, the unforgiving blazing sun that other groups desperately try to orbit, and until they can match his terrifying blend of bloody, agonizing hard work and raw, uncontainable genius, they will forever remain hopelessly trapped in his colossal, history-making shadow.
Number 3. Jimin, the swan who bled for perfection, defying gravity and human limits. Let's rip the glossy, sugar-coated veneer off yet another deeply unsettling reality of the highly mechanized K-pop idol factory, a brutal truth that sends shivers down the spines of desperate executives trying to manufacture the next global sensation. You can easily teach a trainee to flawlessly execute a highly complex, synchronized dance routine, but you absolutely cannot engineer a human soul to physically bleed emotion onto a stage. This brings us to the mesmerizing, gravity-defying phenomenon that is Park Jimin, a man whose very existence on stage completely shatters the rigid, predictable boundaries of what a pop star is supposed to be. To truly grasp the monumental, terrifying gap between BTS and the endless ocean of rookie groups desperately clawing for their throne, you have to understand the sheer, suffocating psychological horror of Jimin's origin story. Imagine walking into a grim, dimly lit basement in Seoul as a desperate last-minute addition to a debut lineup that has already spent years forging an unbreakable, airtight brotherhood. The agonizing reality is that Jimin had a meager, unimaginably short training period of just 6 months to catch up to absolute monsters like J-Hope and RM. He was hovering dangerously on the chopping block, entirely surrounded by cynical company executives who repeatedly tried to cut him from the final team, arguing that his classical contemporary dance background didn't fit the gritty, hardcore hip-hop image of early BTS. How does an ordinary teenager survive that kind of suffocating, spirit-crushing pressure? By entirely sacrificing his own humanity to the altar of perfection. Jimin essentially became a terrifying, sleepless ghost haunting the big-hit practice rooms, surviving on a dangerously meager diet, sleeping a completely unsustainable 2 to 3 hours a night on the freezing studio floor, and relentlessly drilling his body until his muscles screamed in agony and he literally collapsed from sheer blinding exhaustion. This isn't just a sad backstory, it is a terrifying testament to a manic, superhuman willpower that pampered, heavily funded rookies debuting today simply do not possess.
But the brutal reality of Jimin's supremacy extends far beyond his unimaginable work ethic. It is deeply rooted in his absolute unrivaled mastery of his own physical form, a breathtaking artistry born from being the top valedictorian of the modern dance department at the prestigious Busan High School of Arts. When you watch other heavily promoted idols dance, you see calculated, rehearsed movements designed strictly to look cool for the camera. But when you watch Jimin perform the agonizing, soul-bearing contemporary masterpiece that is Black Swan, you are witnessing a transcendent theatrical possession. He seamlessly, impossibly blends the aggressive, bone-breaking grit of underground hip-hop with the breathtaking, tear-inducing fluidity of a dying swan, physically embodying the horrifying, existential dread of an artist terrified of losing their passion for music. You cannot artificially buy that level of cinematic, heart-stopping grace. Furthermore, we absolutely must talk about the devastating, undeniable weapon that is his vocal tone, an ethereal, androgynous, intoxicatingly unique countertenor that fundamentally provides the crucial, irresistible flavor to BTS's monumental discography. In an industry strictly obsessed with cookie-cutter vocalists who all sound exactly the same, Jimin is the undisputed, terrifying master of the killing part. Do you remember the absolute, unprecedented cultural reset that occurred the very second the music video for Blood, Sweat and Tears dropped, and Jimin gazed into the camera while delivering that haunting, breathy opening line? That single 3-second moment violently shifted the entire trajectory of K-pop, instantly destroying toxic, rigid standards of masculinity and introducing a dangerous, gender-blurring allure that thousands of rival idols are still desperately, yet entirely fruitlessly trying to mimic today with cheap corsets and fake eye makeup. You simply cannot replicate his innate, terrifyingly seductive charisma. And if any cynical critics foolishly thought Jimin was merely a standout performer, heavily reliant on his group, he violently shattered the entire global music industry by making unprecedented, staggering history as the very first South Korean solo artist to ever debut at #1 on the fiercely competitive Billboard Hot 100 with his synth-heavy, intoxicating masterpiece, Like Crazy. He didn't just release a safe, generic pop song to appease the masses. He fearlessly dragged his fans into the dark, vulnerable depths of his own psyche, exploring the agonizing isolation of sudden global fame, the desperate, toxic blur of nightlife escapism, and the suffocating weight of astronomical expectations. Can you imagine the sheer, unfathomable pressure of carrying the absolute highest historical peak of South Korean solo music on your shoulders while simultaneously remaining the gentle, fiercely empathetic emotional anchor for the biggest band in the world? Behind the blinding stage lights, Jimin is famously known as the absolute emotional lightning rod of BTS, the first person to instantly rush forward to embrace a crying member, silently absorbing their immense stress and anxiety into his own heart, just to keep the team from fracturing under the horrific pressure of global superstardom. While other billion-dollar agencies are desperately trying to force their new artists to manufacture cute chemistry for variety shows, Jimin is naturally pouring his entire, bleeding heart into nurturing his brothers, proving that true, lasting dominance is built on profound, radical empathy. So the next time a massive entertainment conglomerate aggressively debuts a new main dancer and falsely claims they are the next generation's it boy, we must pause and ask a brutally honest, unforgiving question. Does this new idol possess the terrifying, bone-crushing willpower to survive on 2 hours of sleep? The once-in-a-generation artistic genius to seamlessly manipulate the air around them, and the breathtaking, glass-shattering vocal tone to conquer the Billboard charts entirely on their own? Or are they just a highly polished temporary imitation standing in the colossal shadow of a true artist? Jimin emphatically refuses to step aside because he literally carved his majestic, untouchable wings out of sheer agony and relentless perfectionism, and until the industry can magically produce another swan willing to bleed that profusely for their art, BTS will forever remain hopelessly, terrifyingly out of reach. Number 2. V. The hidden weapon that broke the algorithm. A soulful baritone in a synthetic world. Let's brutally shatter another heavily polished, carefully constructed illusion of the modern idol industry, folks, because if we are talking about raw, uncontainable star power, we absolutely must address the terrifying glitch in the matrix phenomenon that is Kim Tae-young, universally adored and feared as V. To truly comprehend the massive, insurmountable chasm between BTS and the shiny new groups being aggressively pushed by billionaire conglomerates today, you have to rewind the tapes to one of the most agonizing, psychologically taxing origin stories in the history of K-pop. Imagine, if you will, being a wide-eyed, innocent teenager who grew up on a quiet strawberry farm in Gyeongsang, a kid who only accompanied a friend to a big-hit audition purely by chance and ended up being the only person from his entire region to pass, only to be subjected to the incredibly cruel, agonizingly isolating strategy of being the hidden member. While the other 6 members were busy building their early fan bases, posting excitedly on Twitter and recording pre-debut vlogs, Tae-young was forced to sit in the suffocating shadows, literally standing completely out of frame or hiding in a corner while his brothers interacted with the camera, completely terrified that the company might suddenly drop him at the last second. Do you have any idea how deeply traumatic it is for a young kid desperate for connection to be told he must not exist to the outside world? But Big Hit knew exactly what they were doing because they were holding on to a weapon of mass destruction, and when V was finally revealed to the world just days before their debut, he didn't just step onto the stage, he entirely hijacked the global algorithm. The absolute undeniable reality that makes Tae-young entirely impossible to replicate is his terrifying mastery of micro-expressions and his dangerously intoxicating stage presence. In a highly manufactured industry where idols are strictly taught to furiously wink, smile, and shoot generic finger hearts at the camera like synchronized robots, V treats the camera lens like a living, breathing dance partner, shifting from a devastatingly innocent, boxy-smiled boy to a feral, spine-chilling stage demon in a fraction of a millisecond. You absolutely cannot teach an idol to naturally possess the hypnotic, lethal aura he radiates in the legendary Singularity music video, where he manipulates a simple coat rack and a blank mask into a haunting, neo-soul masterpiece of psychological warfare, or his magnificent, record-breaking solo album, Layover, where he entirely rejected the frantic, hyper-stimulating TikTok dance trends of the current generation to create a slow, lush, incredibly romantic jazz and R&B sanctuary, filming a music video with his beloved rescue dog Yeontan, and proving that true artistry does not need flashy gimmicks to completely dominate the global charts. You simply cannot manufacture a soul that deep in a corporate boardroom. Furthermore, we absolutely must address his unbelievable versatility and terrifying courage. While most idols are carefully shielded by their companies, Taehyung fearlessly threw himself into the incredibly demanding world of historical K-dramas with Hwarang, instantly proving he could captivate television audiences just as easily as massive stadiums and forging powerful, lifelong bonds with elite actors that expanded BTS's cultural footprint far beyond the musical realm. He is the ultimate unpredictable wildcard of BTS, a fiercely independent, free-spirited artist who entirely operates on his own unique frequency, affectionately known by fans as Tay-Tay language. He is a man who casually breaks monumental Guinness World Records on Instagram just by breathing, who effortlessly commands the absolute highest echelons of global high fashion as the golden boy of Celine and Cartier, completely shutting down entire city blocks in Paris with his mere presence. Yet despite holding the literal world in the palm of his hands, he still remains the fiercely loyal, incredibly sensitive boy who openly wept on stage when his beloved grandmother passed away, deeply breaking the hearts of millions and solidifying a parasocial bond that is rooted in raw, unfiltered humanity rather than just idle fantasy. He doesn't just passively wear designer clothes, he completely absorbs their essence, turning every single airport arrival and magazine cover into a high-stakes cinematic event that leaves professional models sweating in pure jealousy. And if you dare to question his mental fortitude, just look at his shockingly intense military enlistment path. Entirely rejecting the standard, safer divisions, Taehyung deliberately volunteered for the incredibly grueling elite special duty team, an impossible anti-terrorism unit requiring staggering physical and psychological endurance. This completely shattered the fragile, stereotypical image of the delicate flower boy and proved to the entire world that beneath his breathtakingly beautiful exterior lies the terrifying, unyielding iron will of a true warrior. So when these massive entertainment agencies desperately scramble to find a secret weapon for their new groups, actively hunting for a stunning visual with a deep voice, we must unleash a brutally honest, terrifying question. Do they actually have an artist who can convey an entire heartbreaking Shakespearean tragedy with a single fleeting glance? A man who survived the crushing isolation of the shadows only to become the absolute brightest, most dangerously magnetic star in the entire universe? Or are they just looking at a pretty, empty shell? The refuses to step aside because he fundamentally altered the entire genetic makeup of what a K-pop visual and performer is supposed to be, forging an untouchable jazz-infused legacy out of raw, untamed charisma and fearless vulnerability. And until the industry can magically conjure another soul this beautifully complex and terrifyingly powerful, BTS will remain safely seated on their golden throne, infinitely far above the rest of the mortal realm.
Number 1. Jungkook, the Golden Maknae who forged himself in the fire of 6 kings, the ultimate ace. Let's finally reach the absolute, undeniable peak of this magnificent, impenetrable fortress, the final, terrifyingly perfect puzzle piece that completely obliterates any lingering hope rival agencies have of ever dethroning BTS, and that is none other than Jungkook, globally feared and universally revered as the absolute, undisputed Golden Maknae. To truly grasp the chilling, insurmountable reality of why no other group can even breathe the same air as this septet, you have to understand the unprecedented, almost mythical origin story of a painfully shy, introverted 15-year-old boy from Busan who held the literal future of the Korean music industry in his trembling hands. Imagine being so undeniably naturally gifted at such a staggeringly young age
age that upon participating in the audition program Superstar K, even though he was eliminated early, you immediately receive frantic, desperate casting calls from 7 different major entertainment agencies, including the legendary Big Three powerhouses who could have instantly guaranteed him a safe, luxurious, and heavily promoted debut. Any normal, rational teenager would have instantly signed with the richest, most powerful company without a second thought, securing a comfortable future. But what did Jungkook do? He walked into a tiny, struggling, nearly bankrupt agency called Big Hit Entertainment, saw a young, raw Kim Namjoon fiercely rapping underground hip-hop, and was so profoundly, soul-shatteringly awestruck by RM's aura that he entirely threw away the guaranteed road to success just to follow his idol into the dark, uncertain abyss. You absolutely cannot manufacture that kind of pure, instinctual, destiny-driven loyalty in a corporate boardroom. That sheer, unadulterated trust is the very foundation of his entire existence. Because Jungkook wasn't just trained by vocal coaches and dance choreographers, he was literally, physically, and emotionally raised by 6 older brothers who poured every single ounce of their own distinct talents, traumas, and wisdom into his incredibly absorbent, sponge-like mind. He absorbed Jin's unyielding emotional resilience, Suga's terrifying raw musical drive, J-Hope's merciless, bone-crushing dance perfectionism, RM's profound philosophical intellect, Jimin's breathtaking gravity-defying grace, and V's dangerously magnetic theatrical stage presence, forging himself into a terrifying, unprecedented superweapon that the K-pop industry had never seen before and will never see again. When we talk about the center position in other K-pop groups, we usually mean the most conventionally attractive member who stands in the middle for a few seconds to look pretty for the cameras. But when we talk about Jungkook, we are talking about an absolute, unstoppable juggernaut who flawlessly executes the duties of a powerhouse main vocalist, a razor-sharp lead dancer, a charismatic sub-rapper, and a magnetic visual all at the exact same time, without ever dropping a single drop of sweat. Do you know the sheer, suffocating, bone-crushing pressure of being the absolute anchor for the biggest musical act in human history before you even graduate high school? While other rookies are desperately trying to figure out how to lip-sync convincingly on a small broadcast stage, Jungkook is literally hanging upside down from massive stadium rafters, flying gracefully over oceans of screaming fans, and belting out crystal-clear, breathtaking live vocals during Euphoria while soaring through the night sky like a literal superhero. You simply cannot fake that level of terrifying stamina and raw, uncontainable talent. The stark, brutal reality that absolutely terrifies rival companies is that Jungkook is not just a master of one trade, he is a horrifyingly quick learner who achieves elite mastery in literally everything he touches, whether it is self-producing, directing complex music videos like Life Goes On, painting masterpieces, boxing at a professional level, or instantly harmonizing complex melodies on the spot. And when the entire global industry cynically waited for BTS members to embark on their solo endeavors, secretly hoping the monumental hype would finally die down, Jungkook violently shattered the entire world with his solo debut, casually dropping the infectious pop-perfect anthem 7 and instantly breaking insurmountable global Spotify records, completely dominating the Billboard Hot 101 and proving that he doesn't just need the BTS brand to survive, he is the absolute apex predator of the global pop industry. His solo album Golden didn't just compete with K-pop standards, it aggressively rivaled the biggest Western pop icons like Michael Jackson and Justin Timberlake, seamlessly collaborating with global heavyweights and delivering jaw-dropping, incredibly intricate live performances in Times Square that brought the entire city of New York to a complete screaming standstill. Let us not forget the monumental history-making moment when he stood completely alone on the colossal stage of the FIFA World Cup opening ceremony in Qatar, fiercely belting out dreamers to billions of live viewers across the globe with the absolute confidence of a seasoned veteran, completely unfazed by the staggering pressure that would easily crush any other performer. But despite wielding this terrifying world-conquering power, despite having the entire globe bowing at his feet, the harshest reality of all is his profoundly heartbreaking, unshakable humility. In an industry notoriously plagued by massive egos and bitter internal rivalries, the moment a member achieves massive solo success, Jungkook still openly, tearfully declares that he is nothing without his 6 older brothers, literally dedicating a solo track, Begin, to the agonizing pain he feels whenever he sees his Hayoung struggling, and famously crying on stage because he felt he didn't give a perfect performance for his fans. He is a man who casually washes his own laundry on global live streams, falls asleep chatting with millions of fans in the middle of the night, and bows a full 90 degrees to rookie staff members after ruling the biggest stages on Earth. Even when it came time for military enlistment, the ultimate career roadblock for any idol, he did not delay it to milk his explosive solo fame. He bravely walked hand in hand with Jimin into the notoriously tough artillery division, willingly stripping away his global superstar status to serve as a regular soldier just so BTS could reunite with their fans as quickly as physically possible in 2025. So, when billionaires pump endless amounts of money into aggressive survival shows, desperately trying to artificially engineer the next ace by forcing exhausted teenagers to compete like gladiators, we must ask the final brutal question: can you ever artificially manufacture a boy who was forged in the blazing fire of 6 kings, a Golden Maknae who effortlessly carries the terrifying weight of the world on his incredibly broad shoulders while still retaining the pure, innocent heart of that 15-year-old boy from Busan? The undeniable, earth-shattering answer is absolutely not, because Jungkook is the undisputed, irreplaceable masterpiece of BTS, the final, impenetrable iron wall that guarantees they will fiercely, relentlessly, and eternally refuse to step aside from their rightful throne, leaving the rest of the industry desperately staring up at a peak they will never, ever be able to reach.